The sun rose slowly over the small frontier town, painting the wooden houses and dirt streets in soft golden light. The town had always been quiet, almost too quiet, as if everyone was afraid of making a sound that might upset the strict rules set by their king. The people went about their daily lives, tending to animals, working in small shops, and walking carefully past the king's guards, who always watched, always waited. Life was simple, but it was also limited. Few dared to challenge the king's authority, and even fewer dared to show strength that might draw attention. Into this town arrived a stranger. He was a human, tall and strong, with a calm confidence that seemed to move with him. His clothes were plain, but his presence was not. People paused in the streets, some out of curiosity and others out of fear. The king, who watched from his palace balcony, frowned as he saw the stranger walk through the town. He had no idea who this human was, but he already decided that strangers brought problems. Trouble seemed to follow outsiders like shadows, and he did not want any in his town. Among the townspeople, a young woman moved with quiet determination. Her hair was tied back simply, and her hands were rough from hard work. She carried herself with a confidence that others had learned to respect, even if the king did not notice her strength. She was smart, capable, and brave in ways that most people overlooked. Yet in the eyes of the king, she was only a problem, a girl who refused to bow, who spoke her mind, who made others uneasy by simply existing as she was. The human noticed her almost immediately. He saw the way she moved, the way her eyes scanned her surroundings with sharp attention. He noticed her calm when the wind knocked over a cart, and the way she quickly helped a child who had fallen. There was no hesitation in her actions, no fear in her gaze. She was a warrior, he realized, though few in the town, and certainly not the king, would ever see it. He observed quietly, walking along the streets and pretending to look at the shops, but always keeping an eye on her. There was something about her that reminded him of strength he had known before. Strength not shown through weapons or loud voices, but through courage, intelligence, and quiet determination. The young woman, meanwhile, noticed the stranger, but she did not judge him. She had learned to trust her instincts, and something about him felt different. He was not like the other men who passed through the town, who often tried to show power or wealth. There was a gentleness in the way he watched, but also a steady confidence that suggested he could face danger without fear. The king, however, saw nothing of this. He saw only that she spent time speaking with a stranger, and that made him uneasy. In his mind, anyone who drew attention from his people was dangerous. He worried that the young woman might influence others to question his rules or act against him. To him, she was a threat. He could not see the warrior within her, only the potential trouble she could cause. That evening, as the sun lowered and the streets became quiet again, the human approached her. He spoke gently, introducing himself and asking simple questions about the town and its people. She answered with honesty, and her words reflected wisdom and experience beyond her years. He listened carefully, impressed not just by her knowledge, but by the way she thought about solutions, about fairness, about helping others. They walked together through the quiet streets, talking about small things at first, the best places to fetch water, the quickest way to mend a broken fence, the people in town who needed help. The human watched her, seeing courage and intelligence in every action, every word. He could see that she understood danger and responsibility, that she could lead when others hesitated. In every gesture, he recognized a warrior, a person ready to take on challenges that others might avoid. Meanwhile, the king sat in his palace, growing more uneasy. He watched through his high window as the human and the young woman talked, unaware of the quiet bond forming between them. He thought of her defiance, her confidence, and the respect she commanded from townspeople without even trying. In his mind, this was not leadership but rebellion. She challenged the order he tried to maintain, and he feared what could happen if others followed her example. As night fell, the town became still. The streets were empty, and only the faint sound of animals moving in the distance broke the silence. The human and the young woman parted ways, but both carried thoughts of the day. He understood that this town, this place, was filled with people who accepted limits too easily, who were afraid to see beyond what the king allowed. She understood that the stranger who had come into town was not like the others, that he might see what others could not, that he might recognize the warrior within her. That night, the human sat outside his small rented room, thinking about the young woman and the strength he had seen. He knew she could face challenges the king did not understand, that she could protect others in ways he admired. He also knew that her courage might make the king angry, and that danger could come from those who did not understand her power. Yet he was not afraid. He had faced danger before and he knew how to act. What mattered most to him now was helping her see her own strength, helping her embrace the warrior she truly was. The young woman, lying on her simple bed in her home, thought about the stranger too. She had never met someone who recognized her for who she was, who saw the fire inside her without fear or judgment. She felt a strange mix of hope and determination. Perhaps, she thought, she could do more than survive in this town. Perhaps she could make a difference, not by defying the king directly, but by showing her courage in action, by protecting those who could not protect themselves. The first part of the story ends with both the human and the young woman knowing that something important had begun. It was not yet clear what challenges they would face, or how the king would react to the power they both recognized. But one thing was certain: the human saw a warrior within her, and that warrior was ready to rise. The king, however, remained blind to her potential, seeing only what he feared, a problem he could not yet control. And so, in the quiet town, under the rising moon, the stage was set. A human who recognized courage, a young woman ready to embrace her strength, and a king who saw only what he feared. The story had begun, and the first steps toward change had already been taken. The next morning, the town slowly came to life. Merchants opened their shops, children ran along the dusty streets, and the king's guards patrolled with careful eyes. The young woman was already busy with her chores, tending to the animals and helping neighbors with small tasks. Despite her hard work, she moved with a quiet confidence that drew the attention of the townspeople. Some admired her skills, while others whispered about how unusual it was for a young woman to act so boldly. The human, meanwhile, had spent the night thinking. He knew the town needed more than courage. It needed wisdom, planning, and the ability to act when danger came. He watched from a distance as the young woman interacted with the people. Every gesture, every word showed her natural ability to lead. When a neighbor dropped a basket of vegetables, she was the first to help. When a small child cried because of a skinned knee, she knelt down and comforted him, her voice calm and gentle. The king, however, saw none of this. He noticed only that she drew attention. He could not understand why the people admired her, why they listened when she spoke, or why they smiled when she helped. To him, she was still a problem, a distraction in a town that needed order, not rebellion. He called his advisors, asking them to keep an eye on her, to report any actions that might challenge his authority. But no matter how closely they watched, she acted with care, with fairness, and with respect for the town and its rules. The human decided it was time to speak with her again. He approached her while she was mending a broken fence outside her home. "You have a strong hand," he said simply, "and an even stronger mind. You know how to act when others hesitate." She looked up, surprised but not afraid. She had noticed him before, and while she did not yet fully trust strangers, there was something about him that felt different. "I do what I must," she replied quietly, "but some people think I act too boldly. The king watches me too closely." Her eyes were steady, showing that she was not afraid to speak the truth. The human nodded. He understood more than she realized. "Boldness is not a fault," he said. "It is what keeps people safe, what helps them survive, what allows them to grow. You are stronger than they see." The young woman listened carefully. No one had ever said such words to her before. Most adults ignored her, while the king dismissed her entirely. The human, however, saw her courage. He saw the warrior inside her, and he wanted her to see it too. "There is more you can do," he added. "You can help people in ways they will remember. You can lead not by defying the king, but by showing your strength through action." As the day passed, the town began to stir with small problems that needed attention. A cart carrying firewood had broken down near the market, blocking the road. Villagers looked unsure of what to do. The king's guards were present but hesitant to act, unsure if it was their duty to help. The young woman stepped forward immediately. She directed people to clear the road, guided the oxen carefully, and repaired the cart with skill. Her calm determination and clear instructions helped everyone work together. By the end of the morning, the cart was moved and the road was clear again. The human watched with satisfaction. Every small act she performed revealed more of her courage, her intelligence, and her ability to lead. He knew that the king could never see it as clearly because the king only looked for problems, only saw potential threats. The human, however, saw the truth. She was a warrior in spirit, ready to rise when the town needed her most. The king, on the other hand, grew more frustrated. He had watched the morning's events from the palace balcony, frowning with every success the young woman achieved. In his mind, her ability to solve problems and guide people only made her more dangerous. She cannot be allowed to influence the town, he muttered to his advisors. She must be reminded of her place. She must not show courage that could inspire others. His advisors nodded, but many were unsure how to act. They had watched her in action and could not deny her skill. Yet the king's orders were clear. As the afternoon approached, an unexpected event brought real tension to the town. A small fire had started near the edge of the village, likely from a cooking accident. Smoke rose quickly and panic spread. The king's guards rushed to act, but their fear and indecision slowed them down. People shouted and ran in different directions, unsure how to respond. The young woman did not hesitate. She grabbed buckets, directed neighbors, and began organizing a line to carry water. Her voice was clear, firm, and calm. Everyone listened. The human ran to assist her. He followed her lead, letting her guide the actions. Together they moved quickly, carrying water and helping to put out the flames before they could spread to the homes. The townspeople worked with them, inspired by her courage and by the human's calm support. Slowly, the fire was under control. No one was hurt and the damage was minimal. The king arrived at the scene, seeing the fire mostly extinguished. He was angry, not at the fire, but at the young woman's effectiveness. "Why is she in charge?" he demanded. "Why do the people listen to her instead of me?" The human stepped forward. "Because she knows what to do," he said simply. "She acts when others hesitate. She keeps people safe. That is what a leader does." The king shook his head, unwilling to accept it. He could not understand how courage and intelligence could come from someone he considered a problem. He only saw her defiance, her confidence, and her growing influence. Yet the townspeople cheered quietly, proud of the young woman and grateful for the human's help. Their support was subtle but powerful, a small shift that the king could not control. After the fire was under control, the young woman and the human walked together quietly, away from the crowd. "You acted well," he said. "You guided everyone without panic, without fear. That is courage." She smiled softly, realizing that someone recognized her strength, not just her actions. "I do what I must," she replied, "but I do not always know if I am enough." The human shook his head. "You are more than enough. You are a warrior in ways the king cannot understand, and one day others will see it too." The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the streets. The town settled down after the chaos, but the tension remained. The king watched from his balcony, still frustrated, still blind to the young woman's true abilities. The human and the young woman, however, knew something important had begun. They had faced a challenge together, acted with courage, and helped the town. In that moment, a quiet bond formed between them, based on respect, understanding, and shared purpose. The events of the day had revealed much. The young woman saw her own potential more clearly. The human saw the warrior within her grow stronger with every action. And the king, though angry and frustrated, had begun to realize that the world around him was changing, even if he did not yet understand it. As night fell, the town was quiet once more. The stars shone overhead, and the young woman lay in her simple bed thinking of the day's events. She realized that courage was not just about action. It was about heart, mind, and determination. She understood that she could make a difference even in a town ruled by fear and strict rules. The human sat outside, thinking as well. He knew the young woman had faced fear and chaos and had emerged stronger. He understood that the king's blindness would always be a challenge, but he also knew that true courage could not be hidden forever. With patience, guidance, and faith, the warrior inside her would grow, and the town, and perhaps even the king, would see her true strength. And so, as the stars shone over the small frontier town, the stage was set for more challenges, more courage, and more growth. The young woman had shown her strength, the human had recognized it, and the king remained blind. But change had quietly begun, one brave action at a time. The following morning, the town woke to an unusual tension. A messenger arrived at the town square, breathless and covered in dust. His horse had galloped through the narrow roads, carrying urgent news from a nearby village. A group of bandits had attacked, stealing supplies and threatening innocent people. Panic rippled through the town as whispers of fear spread. The king, hearing the news, ordered his guards to prepare, but many were slow to act, hesitant to leave the safety of the town and face danger. The young woman, however, did not hesitate. She had seen enough chaos to understand what was required. Gathering the townspeople, she organized a small team to help protect the village. Her voice was calm but firm, cutting through the fear that had gripped the town. She spoke clearly, dividing tasks and assigning responsibilities based on each person's abilities. Some were nervous, but her confidence inspired them to act. The human watched her closely, impressed by her leadership. Every instruction she gave, every decision she made, revealed her intelligence and courage. He realized once again that the king could not see what was in front of him. Where the king saw disorder, the human saw her skill. Where the king saw a problem, the human saw a warrior. The king, meanwhile, remained in the palace, frowning. He watched as the young woman prepared the team. His mind was filled with doubt and fear. Why does she command respect? He asked his advisors. She is just a girl. She should not be the one guiding people in times of danger. That is my role. His advisors tried to speak, but most had learned to stay quiet when the king's anger rose. They could see the young woman's ability, and it made them uneasy to argue. As the team left to reach the village, the human followed her. Together they moved quickly along the dusty roads, checking on the villagers and preparing defenses. The young woman's mind worked like a strategist, anticipating what the bandits might do and how to protect the villagers. She instructed the townspeople to move animals to safe areas, secure homes, and form small groups to keep watch. Every action showed her courage and her ability to think ahead. When they reached the village, the damage from the bandits was clear. Homes had been ransacked, livestock stolen, and a small barn was smoldering from a fire the bandits had left behind. The villagers were afraid, some frozen in shock, others trying to protect what little remained. The young woman did not panic. She spoke to them gently, telling them they could recover, they could defend themselves, and they could act with strength. The human assisted quietly, allowing her to lead while supporting her when needed. He helped carry water to put out the fire, helped rebuild a broken fence, and guided frightened villagers to safe areas. He could see her grow stronger with every decision, every action, every word of encouragement. She was no longer just helping. She was leading, showing everyone what courage looked like. Meanwhile, the king's anger grew. He had sent a few guards to check on the situation, but they reported back that the young woman had taken control. "She is leading them," the king shouted. "She is showing them courage. How can this be allowed? She undermines my authority." Yet the king could not act quickly. By the time he prepared a plan, the young woman had already organized the villagers and contained the chaos. She had stopped the fire from spreading, secured the animals, and reassured the frightened people. Her calm determination left little for the king to intervene in without looking foolish. The bandits, realizing the villagers were not completely defenseless, returned in smaller numbers, hoping to take more goods before anyone could stop them. The young woman saw them approaching and quickly assessed the situation. She positioned the villagers strategically, giving them tools to defend themselves, and instructed them to stay hidden until the right moment. Then she, with the human by her side, confronted the bandits directly. Her voice was firm. "Leave now," she said. "You have no right to harm these people. Go, or you will face everyone here." The bandits hesitated, surprised by her courage. They had expected fear, hesitation, and chaos. Instead, they found a young woman standing confidently, guiding the villagers and supported by the human. Her determination was clear, and it unsettled them. The human remained by her side, ready to assist, but he let her lead. He knew she had the skill and the courage to face this challenge. She moved with precision, making decisions that protected the villagers and discouraged the bandits from attacking. Slowly, the bandits backed away, realizing that this was not a weak village and that the young woman's courage was not to be underestimated. When the bandits finally fled, the villagers cheered quietly, their fear replaced with relief. They looked at the young woman with respect, realizing that her leadership had saved them from further harm. The human smiled, proud of her courage and the way she had guided everyone through danger. He knew she was becoming stronger, more confident, and more aware of the warrior within herself. The king, when he heard the reports, was furious but also confused. He could not understand how a young woman, whom he had seen as a problem, had acted with such courage and skill. He could not deny the results, yet his pride and fear kept him from acknowledging her true strength. To him, she was still a challenge to his authority, even though she had proven herself in ways he could not ignore. After the bandits left, the young woman and the human stayed to help rebuild what had been damaged. They worked with the villagers, restoring fences, repairing roofs, and comforting those who had been frightened. The young woman's calm guidance and determination gave the villagers hope. They began to see that courage and leadership could come from unexpected places, even from someone the king considered a problem. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the young woman and the human walked back to the town. Their hearts were tired but full of determination. She had faced real danger and had not faltered. He had watched her grow stronger, more confident and more aware of her own abilities. They both understood that this was only the beginning. Challenges would come again, and the king's blindness would remain a barrier. But the young woman had proven her courage and skill. That night, as the town settled and the stars filled the sky, the human reflected on the day's events. He knew the young woman had taken a step forward, embracing the warrior within herself. The king might never see her in the same light, but that was not important. What mattered was that she had faced danger, guided others, and acted with strength. The young woman lying in her bed thought of the villagers, the bandits, and the choices she had made. She realized that courage was not just about facing fear. It was about acting for others, leading when others hesitate, and trusting in one's own strength. The night was calm, but the tension of the day lingered in the air. The king remained blind to her potential. The human knew her strength, and the young woman had begun to understand her own power. The stage was set for more challenges, more courage, and more growth. She was no longer just a helper or a girl the king dismissed. She was a warrior, and she was ready for whatever came next. The following morning, the town seemed quieter than usual. The villagers were still talking about the events of the previous day, how the young woman had guided them and kept them safe from the bandits. While most people were grateful, some still whispered nervously, worried that the king would punish her for stepping into a role he thought was only his. The young woman, however, did not fear the whispers. She had faced real danger, acted with courage, and realized that helping others was more important than worrying about judgment. The human walked beside her as she moved through the streets, carrying supplies to those who had been affected by the bandits' attack. He watched her carefully, admiring the way she spoke to people, encouraged them, and helped them regain confidence. Every action reflected her growing understanding of her own strength. "You have done more than I expected," he said softly. "Not only have you guided them, but you have inspired them to act. That is true leadership." She smiled, a small but confident expression. "I only do what is necessary," she said. "But I feel stronger now. I see that I can make a difference even if the king does not approve." The human nodded. "Exactly. Courage is not about seeking approval. It is about acting when others hesitate and showing others what is possible." Meanwhile, the king sat in his palace, frowning at the reports coming from his advisors. Every word seemed to irritate him further. "She is gaining influence," he said angrily. "She is guiding the people. She is showing courage where I should be in command. How can this be allowed?" His advisors tried to calm him, explaining that the young woman had saved lives and prevented further harm. But the king refused to see it as a positive. "She is a threat," he said. "I will not allow her to overshadow my authority. She must be reminded of her place." Despite the king's anger, the young woman continued her work in the town. She helped repair buildings, guided villagers in organizing supplies, and shared advice on how to prepare for any future dangers. Her careful planning, calm leadership, and willingness to act without fear impressed everyone. The human remained close, supporting her but letting her take the lead. He understood that she needed to grow in confidence and that his role was to help her see the warrior inside herself, not to overshadow her abilities. By midday, a new challenge appeared. A heavy storm was approaching from the hills, bringing strong winds and dark clouds that covered the sun. The townspeople panicked, unsure how to prepare. Some rushed to secure their homes, while others gathered livestock in small pens. The king's guards stood idle, uncertain of what to do, waiting for orders that did not come. The young woman, sensing the danger, quickly organized the villagers. "We must act fast," she said. "Move the animals to the barns. Secure the roofs. Help each other. We can do this together." The human followed her, helping to carry supplies, lift heavy beams, and guide frightened villagers. He watched her calmly give instructions and make decisions. She moved with confidence, using her mind as much as her strength to prepare for the storm. The villagers followed her lead, trusting her judgment, inspired by her courage and determination. The king, watching from the palace balcony, grew more frustrated. He could not understand why the people obeyed her instead of him. "She is just a girl," he shouted. "She should not be in charge. This is my town, my responsibility." But his words had no effect. The villagers were already acting under her guidance, moving with purpose and focus. The storm arrived faster than expected, but the town was ready. As the wind and rain began to lash the streets, the young woman and the human worked side by side to ensure everyone was safe. She directed villagers to help each other, guided them to stronger shelters, and reassured those who were afraid. The human admired her calm courage. "You are extraordinary," he said. "Even in danger, you lead without fear." She shook her head slightly. "I only do what is needed," she said. "But I feel stronger now, and I understand that courage is about more than facing danger. It is about helping others through it." The storm raged for hours, but thanks to the young woman's leadership, the town suffered minimal damage. Villagers were safe, homes were secure, and livestock were protected. When the storm finally passed, the town emerged with a new sense of unity and respect for her abilities. People who had once doubted her now spoke of her courage and intelligence with admiration. The king, however, was furious. He could not deny the results, but he still refused to acknowledge her skill. "This is unacceptable," he said. "She should not be admired. She should not have influence. I will not allow this to continue." His advisors tried to suggest that the king praise her to maintain order, but he refused. Pride and fear clouded his judgment, making him blind to the truth he could not escape. The young woman had proven her courage and leadership beyond question. Later that evening, the young woman walked with the human through the quiet streets. The villagers had returned to their homes, exhausted but grateful. "Today was difficult," she said softly, "but I feel I have grown. I see that courage is not only about facing fear, but about guiding others and helping them see their own strength." The human smiled. "Exactly. And you have done more than anyone could have imagined. The king may never see it, but the people do. And that is what matters." She paused, looking at the stars beginning to appear in the night sky. "I feel different now," she said. "I am no longer just a helper or a quiet girl. I feel like a warrior inside, ready to face whatever comes next." The human nodded. "You are a warrior, and you will continue to grow stronger. One day others will see what I have seen from the beginning." The night was calm, but the tension from the day lingered. The king remained blind to her potential. The human understood her growing strength, and the young woman had begun to fully recognize the warrior within herself. The storm had tested her courage, and she had passed. She had led people through fear, shown calm and intelligence, and protected the town when it needed her most. This experience changed the young woman. She understood that courage was not about seeking approval or recognition, but about acting for the greater good, leading when others hesitated, and trusting in her own abilities. The human had guided her, but she had taken the steps on her own. Her confidence had grown, her spirit was stronger, and her sense of purpose clearer than ever. As the town slept under the calm night sky, the stage was set for the final challenges. The king's resistance remained, the human's guidance continued, and the young woman's courage had blossomed. She was no longer just a helper, no longer just a problem in the king's eyes. She was a warrior, ready to face whatever came next, ready to show the world her strength, and ready to lead with heart, mind, and courage. The morning arrived quiet and clear, but the calm felt different this time. The town had survived bandits and storms, yet an unspoken tension lingered in the air. The young woman walked through the streets, checking on the villagers and helping with repairs. But there was something in her steps now. A confidence that had grown through action, courage, and experience. She no longer felt uncertain of herself. The warrior within her had fully awakened, and the townspeople noticed it too. The human walked beside her, proud but quietly observant. He had guided her, encouraged her, and watched her grow, but he knew the final test would come not from the world around them, but from the king himself. The ruler still refused to see her true abilities, still viewed her as a problem, and his pride would not allow him to admit that he had underestimated her. Yet the young woman no longer feared his judgment. She knew her strength and she was ready to face whatever challenge he might throw her way. By midday, the king's advisors came rushing to the palace, breathless and anxious. A group of traders from a distant town had arrived, bringing troubling news. A dangerous herd of wild animals was moving toward the town, threatening the fields, livestock, and homes. Panic spread quickly. The king ordered his guards to take action, but they hesitated, unsure how to manage the threat. The young woman, hearing the news, immediately took charge. She gathered a group of villagers and, with the human by her side, began planning. "We must act quickly," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "Move the animals to safety. Protect the homes. Work together. Each person has a role. We can face this danger if we stay focused and brave." The villagers listened, inspired by her confidence and clear guidance. Even those who had been hesitant before now followed her lead without question. The king, watching from the palace balcony, grew more frustrated. He could not understand why the people obeyed her instead of him. "She is just a girl," he shouted. "She cannot control this situation. I am the ruler. I should lead, not her." His advisors tried to explain that the young woman had proven herself capable in previous crises, but the king refused to listen. Pride and fear clouded his judgment, keeping him blind to the truth that was clear to everyone else. The human stayed close to the young woman, ready to assist but letting her make the decisions. Together they moved swiftly. She directed villagers to create barriers, guided them in securing the livestock, and set up safe zones for families. She acted with calm confidence, thinking ahead, anticipating the movements of the wild herd and ensuring that everyone stayed safe. The human admired her focus and courage. He could see the full measure of her strength now. As the herd approached, the young woman remained steady. She instructed the villagers to use noise and simple tools to guide the animals away from homes and toward empty fields. She moved with precision, helping where needed, ensuring the animals followed her direction. The human assisted quietly, helping lift and move barriers, guiding frightened villagers and standing ready to step in if necessary. The king watched helplessly as the young woman successfully managed the crisis. The wild herd passed through the outskirts of the town without causing any serious damage. Villagers cheered quietly, amazed at how effectively she had handled the situation. Even those who had doubted her abilities now recognized her courage and intelligence. The young woman had led with wisdom, strength, and calm determination, saving the town once again. For the first time, the king felt the weight of his own blindness. He had underestimated her, ignored her abilities, and failed to see what was obvious to everyone else. The human, standing beside the young woman, had seen it all from the beginning, and he knew that the king's pride would make recognition slow and difficult. Yet the king could no longer deny the results. The young woman had faced danger, led people through fear, and protected the town in ways he could not imagine. After the crisis, the young woman walked through the town, helping to repair damage and check on the villagers. People greeted her with respect and gratitude. She smiled, feeling a sense of pride but also a deep understanding of responsibility. Courage was not just about facing danger. It was about leading, protecting, and inspiring others. The human walked beside her, offering quiet support and encouragement. "You have done more than anyone could ask," he said. "You have shown true strength and leadership. The king may be slow to see it, but the people already know." That evening, the king finally summoned the young woman to the palace. He sat on his throne, frowning, unsure of what to say. For the first time, he could not ignore her accomplishments, but he struggled to express his thoughts. The young woman entered calmly, her posture steady, her eyes confident. She did not fear him. She had faced storms, bandits, and wild herds, and she had emerged stronger each time. "Your Majesty," she said politely, bowing slightly, "I have done what I could to help the town. I only wish to protect the people and ensure their safety." The king studied her, his pride battling with the truth he could no longer deny. Finally he spoke, his voice quieter than usual. "You have proven yourself capable. You have acted with courage and intelligence. I cannot deny it," the young woman nodded. "Thank you, Your Majesty. My goal was never to challenge you, only to help. Courage and leadership are not about titles or positions. They are about actions and choices." The king remained silent for a moment, reflecting on the truth in her words. He realized that he had been blind, that he had focused on problems instead of seeing potential. The human watched from the side, quietly pleased. He had seen her strength from the beginning, and now the king could no longer ignore it. The young woman had faced every challenge, learned from each experience, and grown into a true warrior. Her courage, intelligence, and leadership had saved lives and inspired the townspeople. She had proven that fear and doubt could not stop those who acted with heart and strength. Over the next days, the town continued to recover and thrive. The villagers respected the young woman, seeking her advice and guidance. The king, while slow to change, began to recognize that her abilities were valuable, even if he still struggled with pride. The human continued to support her, offering encouragement and wisdom, but leaving her in the lead. She had become the true protector of the town, a warrior in action and spirit. As the sun set, the young woman walked through the streets, feeling a sense of fulfillment. She understood now that courage was not about approval, recognition, or fear of judgment. It was about action, responsibility, and protecting those who could not protect themselves. She had faced every challenge, learned from each experience, and embraced the warrior within her. The human walked beside her, smiling quietly. Together they had changed the town, inspired its people, and shown that courage and leadership could come from unexpected places. The king, watching from the palace, reflected on his own mistakes. He had seen a problem where there was a warrior. He had ignored potential, underestimated courage, and allowed fear to guide his judgment. But the truth was undeniable. The young woman had proven herself through action, leadership, and heart. She had changed the town, saved lives, and inspired hope. The king realized that true leadership was not about control. It was about recognizing and nurturing courage where it existed. The night was calm, the stars shining brightly over the town. The young woman stood quietly, thinking of the journey she had taken, from a quiet girl in a strict town to a confident warrior who had faced danger, guided others, and embraced her true strength. The human stood beside her, proud but humble. The king remained inside, reflecting on his own blindness and the lessons he had learned too late. And so, the story ended not with conflict, but with recognition. The young woman had proven her worth, the human had supported her journey, and the king had begun to understand the value of seeing potential rather than fear. The town had been saved, lives had been protected, and courage had triumphed over doubt. The warrior within her had been seen, not just by one human, but by all who had witnessed her actions and learned from her heart.